Hello, everybody. How are you? It's Tracy from Yoga Within, and today we're going to do just a little mini tutorial on Paschimottonasana or seated forward fold. We're also going to do Uttanasana, standing forward fold. These poses seem very simple when you just look at them, but you're really using a lot of different muscles, a lot of different parts of the body. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips on just going deeper into the pose and maybe helping yourself if you really feel like you've got tight hamstrings. Okay, so let's start seated. We're going to have a strap and a block nearby just to make sure that you have something that you can use to modify the pose. Okay, so we're first going to start with just seated with our legs out. Now sometimes what happens is we are so tight in the hamstrings that it might be easier to sit on something. So you can use a block like this, or a cushion, or even a rolled up blanket or towel, just to get the hips up a little bit. Sometimes it feels a little more comfortable. So I'm just gonna show you, we're just gonna sit on the block here, and then you've got your legs up front. And sometimes that just really helps a lot. Now the other thing that happens is that you can still feel it in the hamstrings, so you might need to just soften your knees. You can still go into a forward fold in this position. So I'm just going to remove the block for now, but you use it if you need to. So the first pose we're going to do here is called Uttanasana, so it's staff pose, with basically very straight legs and a very straight spine. Of course, feel free to bend the knees if you need to. You might even be able to take that block and put it under the knees just to, again, help with any tight hamstrings you might have. And every day is going to be different, right? The pose will feel different on different days, different hours. So the toes are pointing up, toes are curling back towards the shins, hands are just going to be on the floor. You're lifting up nice and tall in this pose, and you're going to just drop the shoulders a little bit. So just stay here for a moment. Think about dropping the tailbone. It's a very small movement, and then the belly moves in towards the spine. And just breathe here. You can probably already feel that everything is active, everything is working. Good. And then just release. Now we're going to take our block, our handy dandy block. If you have another one, you might be sitting on one, you might have it under your knees, but right now we're going to put it between the legs. And I want you to think about moving those inner thighs in just to hold the block in place. So sometimes in class you might hear, turn those inner thighs in, think about moving into the center line. What does that mean? Well, it means, as you can feel with the block, that those thighs are just slightly turning in towards the block. And that gives you a sensation of activating the legs, really important. So again, let's take the hands to the floor. Let's lift up in that Uttanasana position. So lifting up through the spine, dropping the tailbone. And now hinge at the hips and take the torso towards the block. You are still activating those legs. The thighs are still moving in towards the block. Try to keep the spine long, shoulders dropped, and think about a string pulling your head up and forward so that your spine is nice and long. Now let's take a nice deep inhale here. And then on an exhale, lower towards the block with the torso. Good. Again, nice and long. And then exhale, lowering down. Good. And again, you might be modifying by bending the knees. You might be sitting on something. But this block in between lets you feel those legs moving in a little bit. Good. And let's walk the hands back. Take the block out and just shake those legs out. Good. So we're going to now use our strap. So sometimes this will really help if, again, you're really tight in the hamstrings or if you tighten the lower back. So we're going to take this strap, we're going to place it around somewhere on the foot. You might want it on the ball of the foot, you might want it down a bit farther. And if you sit up nice and straight, then you can get a length of the strap that you need, and then just wrap it around the hand once. So right now, you're back in that Uttanasana position. The tailbone's moving down, your shoulders are soft, the toes are curling up. You can also soften the knees if you need to. Now in this position, you're going to start bending the elbows as you bring the torso forward. Breathe here. So you're pressing out, you're reaching that head up. Let's take a nice deep inhale. And then on your exhale, maybe you bring the torso closer to the thighs. Now, as you stay here and you loosen up in this pose, you might want to roll the hands again to get the hands a little bit closer to the feet. Up to you. Breathing. Good. So you're activating the arms in this position along with helping you to get deeper into the pose. Good. So let's just lift up from there, release the strap, and again, just shake everything out. Okay? So now let's do the pose without the props, but we're going to imagine. So we're pretending that we have something between the legs. So as you're in the Dandasana position, just gently turn those inner thighs in, lift up nice and tall, drop the tailbone down. The hands are beside you. Soften your shoulders. Lift up through the top of the head. Good. And now start leaning forward towards the thighs. Let's crawl the fingers forward a little bit. Inhale. Exhale. Start lowering the torso towards the thighs. Maybe crawl the fingers forward again. Inhale. Nice and long. Exhale and fold. And then you have options. Once you're this deep into the pose, the hands can stay here. You might want the hands on the shins, to the feet, maybe even grabbing the toes, which kind of feels like having that strap. And then if you do another nice inhale, you can bend the elbows and fold forward even more. Don't worry about planting your face on your legs. You're just slowly going deeper with wherever you feel is good for that day, or again, that hour. Breathing. Good. And then come up, release the arms, and just shake out the legs. Good. So that is Paschimottonasana, the seated forward fold. So let's come to standing now. We're going to use our block. So we're going to do the same thing that we did seated. We're going to take the block between the legs. And I want you to just, in a standing position, in a mountain pose, the feet are about hip width apart, just about. You're going to really ground your feet, lift up through the legs, lift up through the spine. And again, with this block, gently turn those inner thighs in towards the block. Can you feel the activation in the legs? If you let go, nothing much is going on, right? So turn those thighs in. Good. And then lift up through the spine and just have the arms beside you. Mountain pose. Here we go. So I'm just going to turn to the side so you can see here. Let's take our hands to the hips. We're going to slowly come into a forward fold. And again, feel free to soften your knees if you need to. So from here, inhale, lift up through the top of the head. And then on an exhale, soften your knees a little bit and start coming forward. So let's just go halfway and let's just check in. Are you still squeezing that block in between the legs? Good. Drop the tailbone back. Think about reaching the top of the head forward. Now let's keep going. Keep hinging at the hips, just like you were doing in a seated position, taking the torso towards those thighs. Inhale, get nice and long. Exhale, keep going, hinge at those hips. And then you can take the hands to the shins. You can take the hands to the floor. Good, and keep going, dropping the head. So your knees might be soft. You're still engaging those inner thighs. And then you can start thinking about lifting the tailbone, dropping the head, coming right into Uttanasana, into the standing forward fold. Basically the same position as when you were seated. Breathe here. Good. Let's lift up, soften soften the knees, slowly come up to standing, and then remove the block. Okay, one more time without the block. So this time, the feet might be a little bit closer together. Now imagine the block between the legs. Squeeze in gently with those inner thighs. Hands on the hips. Inhale, get nice and tall. Exhale, let's come halfway. Softening the knees. Just coming to this position where you drop the tailbone and reach the head forward. And then slowly lower the torso to the thighs. Keep going, dropping the head. Hands go to the shins or they go to the floor. And then really relax that head and lift the tailbone up to the ceiling as you come fully into the forward fold. Breathe here. You're still turning those inner thighs in. Good. Lifting the belly. Good. Now let's soften the knees and slowly come back up to standing. There you go. You've done it. So those are a few tips to help you in Uttanasana and also in Paschimottonasana. So just keep practicing, use the props when you need to, modify as you need to, and you will enjoy that pose more and more. Thanks for joining. See you next time.